Be careful. Be careful.
Porcelain?
4,000 euro. Ceramics or porcelain? Very nice.
Can you put here the link to my YouTube channel?
Yeah,
I'll create it.
Yeah, okay, good. 3 followers.
I'll
Let's
create.
check in 1 year. Just for the statue.
It's
Write it down.
Ricardo
3 followers.
Talks Ceramics. Yeah.
Extra.
Join my mom and my grandma in the channel as a subscriber to hear more about ceramics and porcelain.
Very nice.
Yeah, but in the meantime, I think we can continue our data studio
Think so. Hi
series.
everybody.
Hi.
everybody.
Thomas, Alex, Ricardo, Talk Ceramics. And we're going to go through the last charts that we needed to talk about now. I think we talked about the best practices of many of them. We talked for 45 minutes about tables. And now we're at the last part to talk about 3 elements that are missing. And I think we can go relatively quickly with some tips of best practices here to go. Because then I think some of them are
Name the 3 elements. Which are missing?
stack charts, combo charts, and one that I have a hard time pronouncing, gauge charts. Gauge charts. Yeah. So stack charts, I think they subdivide into like different modes. You can have just a normal stack chart or 100% stack chart. And it helps like to visualize just a general distribution of what is happening. What would you give as best practices of recommendations for this?
Yeah, so for sure you have to you have to ensure that every chart stack have their own color. So for example, that you don't show a bigger green and a lighter green and so on, a darker green and a lighter green, for example, so that you really use different colors so that you also see the differences between them. And for sure you have to consider if you use the 100% stack charts and the normal stack charts. Yeah. So most of the cases, I think the normal stack charts are the one you should use. Not sure if you have any good examples for 100% stack charts, but for normal spend distributions or whatever, normal stack charts are the case.
Sometimes maybe it makes sense to have if you use 100% stack charts, maybe use both. That could work. Or have a line inside that you have those 100% stack charts and have a line on top which shows basically the development of the absolute number. But the 100% stack chart makes sense if you would like to show how much share a certain in e-commerce marketing case channel has. So if you have marketing channels and you would like to show that Facebook has 40% share, but it drops down to 30, 20, 10 for whatever reason, then maybe the 100% stack chart makes sense. But keep in mind that you lose a lot of information. So if you're marketing let's say your Facebook spend goes down, but in reality, it's only the share which goes down, your marketing spend goes up and your Facebook share stays constant. You get quite quickly wrong, or you make very quickly wrong analysis or wrong how do you say that? Assumptions based on this 100% stack chart. So this you have to keep in mind, and not only you creating the chart, but everyone who's basically reading the chart, which is way more, which is the bigger problem, I would say. So we don't use 100% stack charts quite often.
Quite often, but I think there are use cases for it. I think it's the same. How I explain it when I'm trying to say to someone what is 100% stack chart is a pie chart across time, because it's really you want to see the distribution and how it changes, and you should take as deep analysis through it as you get from a pie chart. It's just a supporting element that is there to give a snapshot, and in the cases that is useful, it's in the same cases that a pie chart is useful. Now, when you want to see, I think your examples, the two of you go more towards marketing, and mine goes more on an operational side. But like if I see, I don't know, how different countries are performing, or where are we going towards, or if I have different shops and how each of them is taken, or I don't know, the workload of different employees, how it's going. I think that is an easy way to see the fluctuation across time. No, like maybe one of these is going more. But besides that, I think best practices to give about it is the same ones that we give for time series. So be careful of naming the axis correctly. Move everything. Data Studio is a bit tricky to manage exactly the labels in the axis, so they see exactly, especially if you have dates and they're quite long, to manage them looking exactly good.
Can you differentiate in the 100% stack charts between percent and the correct value, or do you always have to show the percentage?
Good question.
No idea. What do you mean?
So when you have one bar, and then you want to show for every bar you want to show the value. Can you show
it's not possible.
The value or the percentage?
You can show as an additional value. You can show it as why they called it the tooltip.
Both then basically.
So when you hover over and it shows.
Not hovering. You mean
just
the labels inside
the bar. Yeah, the labels. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. I don't know.
I think I tried it and it's not possible, but I'm not 100% sure to be quite fair here.
How I use it is I have like often, like as with a pie chart, I have it like a smaller element complementary. And I tell people that they can hover over the chart to see how the percentage is actually changing. Yeah. Because quite quickly, like if you have multiple points, if you try to put the labels fixed, it just gets super crowded. And I think it's not really adding value. The fluctuations you're seeing that already. And if you want to go for details, then you go to the table to see.
What you can do is basically using two stack charts for displaying the data you would like to have. Let's say you talk about orders. Let's keep the e-commerce version. You talk about orders and you say, okay, it's first order, returning order, for example, as the 100%, that you see how this share is basically changing. And on top of that, so above that, basically, you have another chart which maybe also is stacked. That doesn't matter, but not for first order and returning order, but for some different thing. But there you don't make 100%, you make basically normal stack chart. So you have basically in both charts the information, are your total orders like going up or down, or how they are like moving. And you have another chart basically below who has the same KPI, number of orders in that case. So that's super important that you stay with the same KPI. And basically only show with 100% how the distribution between two dimensional values are. So that totally makes sense. And maybe if you use the same visual way than we do, and you have this gray background and you have the white boxes, stay in the same white box, that you really see, okay, those two charts are really belonging to each other, right? To make it in a visual way, nice and easy to give the viewer more information.
Yeah, I just looked it up because when we started with the recorder, we said, okay, we have to talk, or we should talk about stack charts, but we don't have so much.
Now again,
quick episode, 15 minutes. No. Stay tuned.
I think we can continue now with the combo charts because it's really, a combination of two of them. I think in general, recommendation there, be very clear of the axis, how they're being labeled. Like if I'm having two elements, like maybe bars and a line or trend line, then I try to put like axis separate. I think that makes it a bit easier to read. But then you're going a bit already assuming that the person who's looking at the dashboard has a certain ease of analyzing it, because I think if they're not using to, it's not about being condescending, like it can be confusing. It can be confusing, especially like if it's a smaller element somewhere and you suddenly like, when a person needs to pause and try to grasp what is happening, maybe it's not the best tool that you should be going.
I think in general, you have to keep in mind that for the one who creates the chart, creates the dashboard, it's way easier. So if you create a chart and you already think, quite hard to get the information, do something else, right? Because the one who then working with the dashboards have way less information than you have. So this is basically thumb rule for creating elements.
Do you have good real life examples? So I have one. We come back to marketing for spend and targets, I would say. So you show in the bars, you show the spend. And then, for example, the customer who would ever said, okay, we have targets for every week, for example. Then you show in the bar for 1 week the actual spend. and then on the target, which was your target.
And there you even have two possibilities, right? You can use a line, or you can use a reference line.
I would use reference lines.
Yeah.
For that.
That's pretty, maybe not pretty new, but that's new since some month, that you can not only make a linear reference. I think we mentioned it in another video already, right?
I
think
also, in the normal bar charts, I think.
I think when we talk about bar charts, Alex also explained if you use basically two axes, like two y-axes, that take care of this, how is it called, reference ticker line, not reference line.
This grid lines,
this
background lines.
Background lines, who are identifying you on which level you are. Put basically one with a very high like interval that they are not like completely making noise out of your data.
But then I often think that when it's a similar unit, I don't know if I would go for a combo chart. No, I would go like if it's similar, like market is spent and what is the result, maybe I would keep. I will go for combo maybe when it's like, okay, the amount expend and the share, like, so then I'm having like absolute units and a distribution, and then I have like, okay, maybe the trend line shows the percentage of something, and then the bars is showing the quantity that was being sold.
Don't overload it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the core message here. Don't put too many different KPIs and elements inside of one chart, because it normally like breaks the way of getting data or analyzing data in a natural way and an easy analysis.
Unless they're emojis.
Unless there are emojis.
Put them.
And Giphies.
Yeah. And then
can we do Giphies in Data Studio?
I don't think so.
You can, you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Even you can put it even within. You can even put it within tables and dynamic.
Okay. Yeah. You are an expert in emojis.
I need to go. Some things to do for today.
You can try it out. So I think then to wrap it up, one I think is the latest addition to the charts options. In the community visualizations, it was there before and it still is, and I think it's called like speedometer or tachometer. It looks like what you see normal to show the velocity or speed of cars. It's a gauge chart, and I think now that it's there, we've been trying to find we've been seeing that we can find some uses for it. I would include the best practices here, covering both the Data Studio Google approved one and the community visualization, because we also have experience there, and talk about what are the ideal ways to use them.
Yeah, so I think the biggest disadvantage in the current approach of the Data Studio gauge chart is that you cannot give different colors of the different ranges. So it just have always shades. So you can say, okay, the whole bar curve is blue, for example, and then it have different shades of blue. But in the community visualization, you can say, okay, this area is green, this one is yellow, and that one is red, for example. That you can
Which is really nice.
Yeah, but that you cannot do in the Data Studio.
What is the biggest downside of the community visualizations?
That is a community visualization, so not
first of all.
So that's not default in Data Studio. Then it's maybe something you have to explain to the customer. And else, it's a little bit more tricky to establish it, or you have different kinds of styling things you can do there. That's, I think, maybe a little bit more easier in the Data Studio one.
Is the target, can it be taken dynamically out of the data in the community visualizations?
I don't think so. You have to say, so what do you mean with target? So you have to say, okay, 1 till 100,000 is green or whatever, 100,000 to 200,000 is so and so on. But you cannot do it dynamically with the data.
This is not, you have to set it fix in the, okay.
Yeah,
and with the Google one as well?
Yes, as well.
Also.
Yeah.
This is for me, for example, a very big downside. So I would like to have basically also those gaps, borders, or I would like to have them dynamical, because if they are changing over time and you always need to go to the dashboard and change them, then yeah, it's a big problem. If you, for example, have data over like 3 years, right, and you would like to show kind of the target you hit, of course your business is in the best case growing, So also your barriers or your borders will basically move. And when you go right now in your dashboard 2 years back in time, and you basically specification or your border is like staying, then of course also your gauche is not really helpful. So when you have basically time range interval, then it doesn't really help to have those fixed borders. When you use the gauche charts, when you use them, it always makes sense to use them with a target, I would say, right?
Of course, yeah. I think
this is exactly the use case when it.
So the Data Studio one has a special line for targets. Then you have a black line, I think. Not sure if you can change the color, but then you have really a black line,
and it goes towards. I think this type of visualization comes really from a way of setting targets that maybe we're not that familiar with. I think it goes more towards in the world of sales, in the world of
controlling.
Of recruiting. Yeah, maybe not, I don't know, controlling that much, but like if you're part of that's tables. No, like if you're part of a recruiting team and you have a target of people that you need to hire, or if you have a sales and you need to close a certain number of accounts in a certain month. I think in this type of sectors, people are much more used to having this, what you're talking about, because you don't have one number that you're aiming for. You're not aiming for a share. You're really trying to get in this bump because this means that you get this type of bonus, and then this next one with this other type of bonus. And that's when, in the cases that it makes sense.
But if we think outside of e-commerce or also SaaS tools, if we think in the medical sector or whatever, sometimes you have to hit a certain like threshold, right?
Also
and this is also a very good like way to use those charts.
Good.
When you say, okay, I need to stay in the middle. Mean square error, I don't know, like ML products. When you talk about KI and make certain models, and you need to stay in a certain range, right? And you're
sorry, but for that I would go for the one that we didn't even list, is the bullet one. So when you want to stay in a range, and the range is important, but both outside are bad, then you go for the bullet because you set the limits and you need to stay in this part. But the speedometer or gauge one is not that good, relatively good, and the ideal. And you don't want to go.
And it comes with a very big.
Exactly, as far you can go is good. Right? It's all good.
Yeah.
But I think, we could talk about all the community visualizations and all the parts even more. But I think it's, for now, a very nice series of.
Yeah, so just quickly to mention, there are also some other Data Studio chart types which we don't use. So for example, bubble charts, how do you call them? Not sure, scatter plots, heat maps, and so on, I think. But these ones we don't use so much. So all our use cases we can also show with other, I would say, more intuitive charts and easy to understandable.
Yeah, but more importantly, Alex, if someone would like to, for example, read some Medium post about the latest updates, where should they go?
They can go to Medium, to the datadice account, and check out the blog post there. So yeah, we already scheduling some with new employees from us. So let's see which ideas they bring to the Medium post, because I may be already a little bit biased to some of topics and so on. So let's see. And also subscribe our YouTube channel.
Yeah. You should make a jingle out of that, right? Yeah. What are we doing with Alex is on vacation for 1 week?
Yeah.
We have a big problem. You need to do it then, Ricardo.
I'm going to be doing ceramics. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you guys. Have a good week.